with working till 2 o'clock in the morning. And I did that for 5 years. Like it was so normal.
What is the link between our nutrition and our mental health?
We use food as a vice. We use food as punishment. We use food as a reward.
I was trying so hard to maintain the same behavior every single day.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Mindful Business Podcast, where we have conversations about building businesses while prioritizing our mental and physical health. In today's episode, I sat down with Jenna Malherbe and we discussed her experience building a multi-location healthcare practice as a dietitian, what that journey has looked like going into new motherhood as well as picking her brains on a few dietitian, nutrition, and mental health related topics of conversation. So I hope you enjoy. So thank you for joining.
Yes.
It's exciting to have you on.
Thanks so much for having me.
To start off with, I wanted to see if you could tell us a little bit about your experience building a private practice with multiple locations and what that whole experience has been like over the last 5-7 years.
Yeah. So you did on. It's about six or so years. So it started in 2021. I found a location. It was incredibly cheap. So I did the calculations on how many patients I would need to see for the year to cover my rental. And it made a lot of sense just to kind of take the leap. It was very terrifying because it was coming off the end of COVID as well, where starting a business was incredibly difficult. And advertising and people wanting to get out and prioritizing nutrition just wasn't quite at the top of everyone's mind. But one of the things I kind of realized quite soon into starting is that I wasn't the only person in this position. And if
as a dietitian.
And if I could maybe create a space where there was a practice for a lot of dietitians then to join, because I knew there was a gap in the market for job opportunities, I basically made that my mission. So within the first 6 months of opening, I'd already expanded to 3 locations. What I wanted to do with dietitians joining the team is I realized that when it comes to Google Ads, besides the least, you've got a website, you've got a brand identity. And I felt that if by taking on more dietitians, the overall cost of running it becomes less overall. So I just, that's kind of
how
I approached
grown.
it. Yeah. So currently now I'm sitting at 4 locations. I sold 2 locations a few months ago to one of the dietitians that worked for me actually. So sitting at 4, and then we're a team of 3 at the moment.
It's amazing that with the goal that you have of job creation for other dietitians and healthcare professionals, you've actually really succeeded in that, because not only did you create jobs, you created the opportunity for someone else to have their own practice as well by selling the last 2. So you're achieving the goals that you set out, not only supporting yourself and your family and your business, but you've been able to bleed that into other people, which is such a cool thing, because private practice can be really competitive as well.
Highly,
very individual
and for sure.
Exactly. I like that you're changing that narrative a little bit. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
Have you found, obviously the highs and lows of running a business, what's been like your most exciting achievement, or like, it doesn't even have to be an achievement, just like a moment where you're like, I'm so glad I did this?
I think, your instinct to answer a question like that is obviously to think, okay, what was the biggest achievement? And I actually probably take it a slightly different route and actually say one of my greatest achievements to date is not a very big one maybe to other people's perception, but when I opened my first office, I'm still with the patients that I started to see. One of my first 100 patients I still see to this day.
That's amazing.
And that's one of my biggest achievements, because I feel like it was a testament to, the effort and the love that I had for patients, that they would stick with me even through the multiple office moves.
You've built relationships.
Yes, and I think that's I'm proud of that.
So you've seen major growth, but recently you've had a very big shift in what that whole journey looks like. Yeah. You are a mom.
Yes. 2 kind of avenues I wanted the practice to go in is, as I said, creating jobs for other people. So I wanted multiple locations. I wanted more than one dietitian to work with me, not for me, but I like to say with me, they're my colleagues. But then I wanted a business that could also run itself if I wanted to take a day off, if I need to take my baby to the hospital, and not have to answer to anyone and have, be the take authority over my own time. I also feel, with my personality being really work orientated and very career focused, it was really important that was able to run sufficiently before I took that step. I think you get a little bit scared that what if it doesn't, what if it falls apart and I can't control it? But it did. It ticked over and everything was fine. And I handed over my patients to my trusted colleagues and everything, it didn't fall apart, which I was so anxious to, because I think I worked so hard in the build up to getting to that point. And it's just so lovely to then go through that sacrifice and now being able just to sit, and sometimes I pinch myself because I've worked so hard for here and it's here. And sometimes I just got to remind myself, I got to enjoy it and not feeling that guilt. You can train, you can go to exercise, and that's not selfish. You can step away from your baby for a second. You can step away from your business. You can do a little bit of you time. And I feel really grateful for where I am now. And it's that, it's that situation where if I just knew that the sacrifice would actually work out, I think you'd feel a lot more peace in the process. Yeah. And during that time, you get quite caught up in how intense it is, and then you can just kind of feel like you're struggling to breathe above water. And it's so lovely now that I'm just floating. It's so great. Yeah.
I'm glad that you're having the two experiences as well. You also, so you know what it's like to run a business and how much it can demand from you and how it bleeds into the rest of your life. It takes over, and then there's other parts of your life that you start to neglect a little bit.
One of the things I talk about almost daily with patients is this kind of tiered approach, fueling and nourishing your body. And I say, the rainbow situation, which I call plan A, is if you're able to, cook every day, being able to be open and having the time and mental capacity to try new recipes. Then you've got your plan B, and that's when, you maybe don't have all the time in the world or all that capacity, and you need to look a little bit more at meal prepping. And I think where people go wrong with meal prepping is they think it means chicken, broccoli, and rice. First misperception. Other perception is that you're cooking one complete meal, and eating the same thing for days on end. We kind of talk about how that works for the individuals. What shops do they like to shop at? Are they needing to cook every second day, or only twice a week, or once a week? Is it on the weekend? Because maybe if they're cooking on the weekend, your fresh produce like your lettuce, tomato, etc., is going to go off in the beginning of the week. So if you're going to choose your non-starchy veg, go for your fresh produce in the first half of the week till about Wednesday, and the second half of the week you still get non-starchy veg in the form of like carrots, mushrooms, things that are going to keep last forever in your fridge. But then you can have it in the second half of the week. And if you're cooking your protein in bulk, if you have a roast chicken, you can have it on a sandwich for lunch, and then with tacos and that evening, and then on a wrap the next day, and the next day you're having it with rice. And it's the same chicken, but then
in different ways.
And you can flavor it. If you cook it almost blandly or very neutrally, you can throw in like your sauce and your marinade as you're preparing it, and throwing together a bit of starch and veg. You can do that while you're in the shower, just boiling some rice or chopping up a salad last minute. So that would be like our plan B. So that's our plan B tier. I find that maybe 80% of my focus in consultations is actually plan B. I feel like most people in that space.
I was going to say, I resonate a lot with plan B. Plan A, I like the idea of, and I dabble in it, but that's because I like cooking though as well. I know a lot of people who don't like cooking; they cannot be bothered. Yeah. So plan A is more like. Yeah,
I'm a dietitian, and I'm not necessarily a foodie. I eat more for function, and that's okay. And there are people that love their microgreens and their alfalfa, and I'm like, that's great. I'll add it to your diet, but I'm a little bit more functional than that.
I'm definitely a plan B girl. Yeah. But on the chicken one, I love a little pre-cooked chicken in a bag.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Oh, me too.
Game changer for lunches. Me too. And I'm not making 2-minute noodles all the time. It's fantastic.
Shame. Yeah. So that's awesome. Like your plan B, and then your plan C and your plan D. I feel plan C, I say, is your fresh, ready-made meals. So those are things that you would have to keep up to date because it's going to go off within the next 2 to 3 days. You can keep it in your fridge. But for a lot of working professionals, they do have a little bar fridge in their work office, and they can put a few little ready-made meals in there and maybe top it up with a bit of tuna or cottage cheese or something else on the side. And then your plan D is your frozen meals. Some frozen meals companies can actually, those meals can remain up to 3 months in your freezer. So what's so amazing is that there's no pressure like you have to eat this now. You can keep 10 meals in the back of your freezer. And, it could happen to me where I've been, I'm busy with little Ollie. I've had a busy day. I've got a lot of admin to do, and I didn't have time to go to the shops to get something that's a little bit more prepared and to kind of throw it together. And I'm just whipping out a frozen meal and I'm putting that in the oven. And I think when people think ready-made meals, they immediately think, oh, that's mean lasagna. There are so many. I can list them like this, the number of meal prep companies that are out there. They have really, really healthy options.
I was about to say, I think a lot of people some people have this perception of if it's frozen, it's unhealthy.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean, there are definitely unhealthy frozen meals, don't get me wrong.
Exactly, yeah.
But I mean, even again, meal prepping. If you cook a monster thing and then you freeze them, are you telling me that food's now unhealthy because it's been frozen?
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah,
it's just cold.
They actually did a study on it, and they showed that when you freeze, and it is specifically on vegetables, when you freeze vegetables, the nutritional value does not change at all. It's actually
Amazing.
The heating of food. So it's a lot of the heating which might denature the protein or might degrade like the nutritional quality of the meal. So it's not saying don't cook your food. I'm just saying from a freezing perspective, paleo.
That's amazing. Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared to freeze their food because there's just like this illusion, this weird thing that we've conjured up in our mind of, you know, if it's frozen, it's not as good as fresh, but it was fresh when you froze it.
Yeah.
And it's just stayed that way, so it's fine.
Yeah.
What healthy habits would you give your previous self?
I think knowing that it was okay to step away from the business and the business will continue. I think I would definitely allocate a lot more time. So with allowing myself more time in the day, I feel like I could not only look at my nutrition better, but I can prioritize my sleep. I would get in a lot more exercise sessions than I did. From a nutrition perspective, I kind of had that one down, but I think other aspects, you know, your stress, your sleep, your exercise, these other facets of well-being, I feel like I should have spent a lot more time on those ones.
Well, in your experience, what was the first, if we're talking about sleep, exercise, nutrition, let's call it free time or personal time, what was the first thing for you that fell away?
Sleep,
yeah.
Because when I was going to bed at 2:00, and I was so used to it. It doesn't mean I'm not a coffee drinker. So I think people are like, oh, she's probably on caffeine and Red Bulls and coffee. No, I was
just natural determination, baby.
Yeah, but with working till 2:00 in the morning, and I did that for 5 years. Like it was so normal for me to do that. So going to bed then around between 11 o'clock to 2:00 in the morning, I'd always have a 6 a.m. patient.
It's hard. It's entirely circumstantial.
Yeah.
You know, you do the best with what you have. And I was having this conversation with a previous guest on, we always have our ideal situation and, you know, the 50-50 balance and everything is perfectly organized and we've just got the balance nailed. I don't know anyone who has that. Anyone. Because it's such a slippery slope and a tilting scale. Yeah. So, you know, if working out one more time a week is an achievement for you, then that's fantastic.
Yes.
Then great. Yeah. You've got to really look at your individual setup and see what's possible for me. I mean, other people with other businesses, they won't have the early morning and late patient scenario.
Yeah.
And then they use that space. It's really nuanced depending on what your business looks like.
Yeah.
All these things, we're talking about like the physical well-being, right? Sleep, nutrition, exercise. That's all physical. Focusing in on the nutrition side of things. What is the link between our nutrition and our mental health?
I think the two are almost inseparable for almost every single person that I see, because food is such a manifestation of what's happening on the inside. We use food as a vice. We use food as punishment. We use food as a reward. And I think, you know, with patients and their relationship with food, you can't not address it in every single consult, you know, because we have patients that say, oh, you'd be so proud of me, I'm eating one meal a day. And I say that your body can't function on one meal a day. Your metabolism is going to adjust for that and you're going to start seeing negative consequences of that. So why is it one meal a day? Why are you skipping it? You know, where does this come from? And you can sometimes, you know, peel all the layers back as, oh, no, I don't have enough time. No, I'm prioritizing my job. No, I don't have enough balance. No, I don't feel confident in my body. No, I have these eating problems. And it's so like the layers that you pull back is like, it's multifaceted. And I think the link between nutrition and mental health is always there. Yeah. See where nutrition is being manifested and how they're using food to cope or to neglect themselves. And you address that and you know, you don't just say, oh, eat one extra slice of this and one less slice of that. It's, okay, what are you doing in terms of your work? Let's look at your work hours. Let's look at how you're balancing your lifestyle in addition to the food. And when you start addressing that, the food naturally the nutrition starts to fall into place.
That's amazing. Yeah. That's amazing. I love everything that you just said about how we use food as a vice, a punishment, a coping mechanism, a reward. I think that's incredible because like even as someone, like you said earlier, you view food as function. And I think people sometimes take that in too kind of focused of a view and saying, oh, it's just food, it's just functional. They're not thinking about, okay, but what is my relationship to food and how I'm cooking and how I'm eating and how I'm preparing it and the effort I'm putting in or the lack of effort and the relationship that you have with it. Yes, food can be function. You don't have to be a foodie to eat well.
Yes.
But what is the mental relationship? And I never really actually realized how synonymous mental health was with nutrition. Is that something that you've learned over your years of experience? It's not something that you were taught, the link between mental health and nutrition. Is that something that you've just discovered by building relationships with your clients? You've seen that and that's come out.
Yeah, I think the key word you use there is relationships. For some people, we're just in education. For some people, maybe they want to lose weight. But I say to them, I don't know if stepping on the scale is detracting your focus from your implementation and your focus on health. You're becoming too numbers orientated and you're taking the shift off of the weight will sort itself out. It's an outcome of what you're inputting. It's not the end. It's not the only goal. It's a subsequent outcome of focusing on your implementation and your overall health. It could change. One day you could feel overwhelmed and you could feel like restriction is putting you in a place where you just want to reject any type of structure. So then do something flexible. If you're feeling like you're wishy-washy, aimless, you're not having any precise goal and way in which to get there, then move to something a little bit more structured. And I alternate between sometimes layouts even on one consultation compared to another.
I think that's amazing. And I think that is such a great microcosm version of how we approach our well-being. It doesn't have to be one approach forevermore. It doesn't have to be, I have to stick to this particular regiment every single day and I have to tick all these boxes every single day. Because like you said, we're human, particularly as women as well. I mean, I know men too. We all have bad days. We have good days. We have moods. And one approach is not going to match every single day.
Goodness knows, the same person.
The last 2 days, I've been a very unhappy person. There's no reason for it. Genuinely, just been in a bad mood. So the same approach that I had on Monday, what's today? Friday. The same approach that I had for my life on Monday, Tuesday went great. I was loving it. I was like, this is what I'm going to do. Fantastic. Taking off the boxes, feeling really productive. Wednesday, Thursday, I was like, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to tick any box. I'm not ticking off any boxes. So then I'm getting frustrated. And it was exactly, and I worked myself into this kind of extra bad mood because I was trying so hard to maintain the same behavior every single day to just keep having the same kind of daily achievements in life and going to workout and going to boxing and things like that. And then I was getting agitated because I wasn't able to do that. I just wasn't in the space that day. So I love that you've got a flexible approach. And I think that is exactly how we need to approach our general well-being. Work out when you can, when you feel like it's going to be good for you. Maybe you have the energy to do it and you go for it. Maybe you're feeling really frustrated and you don't want to go, but you know it's going to be good for you to let off some steam. And then other days you just don't have the energy and maybe it's actually going to drain you a little bit more. So then don't go. It's picking what works for you and what doesn't. But the key, I think, in that is that you still have to make a decision. You still have to do something about it. You can't just say, I'm not going to do anything.
Passive,
or you're just going to go complete opposite and go rogue. So it's having freedom and flexibility, but not taking advantage of that and disregarding everything that you're trying to set in healthy habits, because it takes time to implement that as well. So I love that you have that approach. That's amazing.
And I think the concept we're talking about a lot here is mindfulness. Talk about mindfulness. The definition I like to give of mindfulness is you need to have a reference in which to compare to. So for example, if we have a flexible approach versus a structured approach, you can at least look at your day and say, okay, this is what it would look like in an ideal situation. How am I going to amend it? So let's say, for example, you're going to a friend's birthday party this afternoon, evening, and you're going out for burgers. That doesn't mean you're going to starve yourself the whole day, but it might mean instead of 2 slices of bread, you're having 1 slice of bread. You're not over restricting and overcompensating. You're just being mindful because you know what your normal should look like, and you're referring to that and you're being conscious about how to make those slight tweaks and changes so that you're getting an overall balance in the day. And talking about relationship with food, I often talk about this pendulum. So on the one side we've got white, the other side we've got black, and in the middle we've got this gray zone. And I find then the one side represents over restriction, fear of food, cutting out food unnecessarily. And on the other side of this pendulum, you've got overindulgence, binge eating tendencies, almost like this punishment. And in the middle, we've got this lovely, happy, balanced zone. And what I warn patients about is if you're so much on the one side of the pendulum, it might not come today or tomorrow, but you will flip to the exact other side of the pendulum to almost the exact same extent. So if we can just get these massive fluctuations across the pendulum in the gray zone, I talk about in the gray zone with patients, it's okay to have these little fluctuations, but the bigger the pendulum swings,
the more the risk.
The more the risk, the more your body is going to be resistant to change when you try and get into healthy routines. And you just want to keep this little pendulum shift as small as possible.
I was going to ask about extremes, and I think this leads me quite nicely into the last kind of part of the conversation I wanted to have. The element of extremes. In the last couple 6 months, even, outside of this conversation in my life in general, looking at the world, I'm really very conscious of extremism in any form. Extreme opinions, extreme behavior. Extremism is quite scary to me at the moment. And I think that that's kind of what you're saying is when people want to make a change, they're like, I'm going to make a change. And then they go extreme.
For sure.
And it's not sustainable. Yeah. And often it's not healthy. And sometimes it puts your body into shock or your mind into shock. And it can sometimes derail your life. For some people, maybe it works if you're like maybe super type A or you really need that. But I think that for the majority of us, we need to live in that gray zone. Yes. And when it comes to wellness and well-being and mental health, I think that a lot of people get a fright or they have an experience where they're like, I've got to make a change. And then they go a bit too far.
Yeah.
They forget that the gray zone is a good place to be.
Yeah.
The middle space. And if you're there, you have a lot more wiggle room. If you jump straight to an extreme, you end up in a very tight little box on what you can or can't do or should or shouldn't be doing.
Space to move. Yeah.
So I think that understanding that being in that gray zone, you don't have to be extreme to see changes. Yes. It's consistency.
Yes.
And it's small steps and it's small action that makes the difference.
Yeah. And I say to patients, do you want to make the most amount of progress in 1 year or 6 years from now? And I believe this a lot and I ask, my colleagues to also address patients this way, where we have a rule at our practice. I will not see you for a weekly weigh-in. I will not, out of principle. I will try to rather see you 1 month. Some patients I see once every 3 months, because I would rather see you in 3 months and you're making progress, and I can see you for 6 years and maybe like half yearly or quarterly. If you need more help, I'm there for you. I can see you more regularly than that, but I will not see you weekly unless it's an eating disorder or like a really special case, because what that enforces with patients is that you need to be extreme. You need to see results within 7 days. Your body is not going to change every 7 days. Your weight can fluctuate within 2 kilograms within the same day. It's biologically impossible that is muscle.
Can you say that one more time, just one more time, really slowly, for myself, but also every other woman out there who's like on a cycle or had a big lunch?
Yeah.
Can you just say that sentence one more time?
I can even make it even more extreme. Your body can't even change by up to 200 grams in muscle and fat within the same day. It can't do that. Yet the scale can fluctuate within 2 kilograms. Everything from gut content to, if you've exercised, were you fasted? Did you sweat? Did you overhydrate? If you're on your period, literally your uterine wall is thicker. So if you do a body composition scan, your muscle on your core will actually be overestimated. There's so many things. I mean, if you have a full bladder, when was the last time you passed a stool? There's so many things that cause these massive fluctuations, and people want to see these results. And what you're talking about is that all or nothing approach. The all or nothing approach is easier. It is easier to do than to be sustainable, because it also allows yourself an excuse to say, this was too much for me. I'm just going to pull out. And being sustainable and putting on the brakes to say, I'm actually not going to train 3 times a day. I'm actually not going to cook twice a day. For some people, it's harder to look at it from like a meal prep perspective, from a sustainability perspective. It's a lot more conscious. And I talk about that all the time with patients. It's an important concept, which I think most people struggle with.
Thank you for listening to the Mindful Business Podcast. If this resonates with you, please follow along, share it with a friend or a family member who you think could benefit from it. Leave a review, a comment, a question. I'd love to hear from you. What are you struggling with? What do you want to know about? Also, don't forget to take a break today. You're allowed to go at your own pace. See you next time.